The moment everything changed, the grand auditorium of Westfield Medical University buzzed with nervous energy as hundreds of first-year students settled into their seats. Maya Saylor clutched her worn notebook, her mind still foggy from working a 12-hour night shift at Memorial Hospital just hours before. The partial scholarship covered most of her tuition, but every extra dollar mattered. She'd heard about Dr. Graham Smith, of course. Everyone had. The brilliant surgeon turned billionaire who'd transformed his grandfather's failing medical school into one of the nation's most prestigious institutions. At 40, he was both feared and revered, a man who could make or break careers with a single word. Maya had no interest in impressing him. She was here for one reason: to become the kind of doctor her grandmother never had access to. Someone who would fight for patients in underserved communities, would push the boundaries of neurogenetic research where others saw no profit. When Dr. Smith took the stage, Maya barely looked up from her notes about cognitive rehabilitation techniques. His voice was deep, commanding, filled with the confidence that only unlimited power could provide. "Excellence is not an aspiration at Westfield," he declared. "It is our baseline, our foundation." Maya scribbled absently, her mind drifting to her grandmother's final months. The brilliant woman who'd raised her, reduced to confusion and fear, because quality dementia care was a luxury they couldn't afford. Something made her glance up then, perhaps the sudden silence that had fallen over the auditorium. Dr. Smith stood frozen at the podium. For 3 heartbeats, the entire room seemed to hold its breath. Maya felt exposed under his intense gaze, but she refused to look away. She'd learned long ago not to be intimidated by powerful men who thought their authority made them untouchable. If anything, his obvious discomfort amused her. Finally, he recovered, clearing his throat. "Into your hands we place not just knowledge, but trust. Society's trust." Maya returned to her notes, unimpressed. She'd heard similar speeches before, lofty words from people who'd never worked a night shift to pay for medical school, never watched a brilliant mind fade away due to inadequate care. After the ceremony, while other students lingered hoping to network, Maya headed straight to the library. She had 3 hours before her next shift, and her neurology textbooks weren't going to read themselves. She had no idea that her brief moment of defiance had just altered the course of her life forever. Asterisk. The investigation Graham Smith couldn't concentrate during the board meeting that followed his speech. The quarterly reports blurred together as his mind replayed that moment of unexpected connection. Who was she? Why had her unimpressed gaze affected him so profoundly? Dr. Smith. Board member Harrison's voice cut through his distraction. "Ain't your thoughts on the cardiology wing budget?" "Approved," Graham said curtly, earning surprised glances around the mahogany table. He typically scrutinized every line item with surgical precision. The meeting ended earlier than usual. Graham retreated to his corner office, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a commanding view of the campus he'd built into his vision of medical excellence. "Robert," he called to his assistant. "Student in the 3rd row? I'll seat during today's address, dark blue blazer. Find out everything about her." Robert's expression remained professionally neutral, though Graham caught the slight raise of his eyebrow. In 8 years of working together, Graham had never shown interest in individual students beyond their potential to enhance the university's reputation. "Right away, Dr. Smith." 3 hours later, a file landed on Graham's desk. With a soft thud, "Maya Saylor," Robert announced. 24 years old, first-year medical student, graduated summa cum laude from Howard University with dual degrees in biochemistry and psychology, partial scholarship recipient, currently works night shifts at Memorial Hospital to cover remaining expenses. Graham opened the file, studying her photograph. Even in the formal, unsmiling admissions photo, her determination radiated through. Her eyes held the same intelligence that had caught his attention during the speech. "Specialty focus?" he asked, though he was already scanning. "The documents. Neurogenetic disorders and cognitive rehabilitation. Particularly interested in early-onset dementia research." Robert paused. Her personal statement mentions her grandmother's struggle with the disease and the lack of adequate treatment options. In underserved communities, Graham read her essay twice. Her writing revealed a sharp mind tempered by genuine compassion, a rare combination in medicine, where cynicism often prevailed. One professor had noted, "Miss Saylor challenges conventional wisdom not from arrogance, but from a genuine belief that medicine must evolve beyond its comfortable paradigms." After Robert left, Graham found himself doing something unprecedented, spending an entire hour studying a single student's application. Maya Saylor's academic record was impressive but not extraordinary. What set her apart was her unwavering focus on service over profit, principle over prestige. That evening, in his penthouse, overlooking the city's glittering skyline, Graham poured himself a glass of 30-year-old scotch and stepped onto the terrace. For 2 decades, he'd built his empire through calculated moves and strategic thinking. Every decision served a purpose. Every relationship advanced his goals. Yet as midnight approached, his thoughts kept returning to Maya Saylor and that moment of mutual recognition. When had anyone last looked at him as simply a man rather than Dr. Graham Smith, the institution? He dreamed of her that night, not the explicit fantasies one might expect, but something more unsettling. In his dream, they walked through the medical campus as equals, engaged in passionate debate about treatment methodologies. Her laughter was sudden and genuine when he made an unexpected joke. Graham woke at dawn with her name on his lips, disturbed by the unfamiliar feeling of genuine curiosity about another person's thoughts and dreams. Asterisk. The approach Graham's unusual preoccupation demanded action. He'd built his empire by identifying objectives and creating strategic pathways to achieve them. This situation would be approached with the same calculated precision. By afternoon, he'd rearranged his typically immovable schedule to include a surprise visit to the first-year anatomy laboratory. His arrival sent ripples of nervous energy through students and instructors alike, everyone except Maya Saylor, who remained focused on her dissection with deliberate precision. "Dr. Smith," the laboratory instructor stammered. "You weren't expecting, just observing," Graham replied smoothly, moving through the room with practiced authority. "Please continue." He positioned himself strategically near Maya's station, noting her methodical approach to the cadaver. While other students worked in chattering pairs, she operated with quiet efficiency, occasionally consulting her detailed notes. "Interesting technique," Graham observed, causing several nearby students to freeze in terror. Maya glanced up briefly, meeting his gaze with polite but unimpressed acknowledgement. "Dr. Patel taught us to work systematically," she replied, returning to her dissection. Less chance of missing crucial details. Graham was struck by her composure. Most students either fawned over him desperately or trembled with fear. Maya treated him like any other observer, with basic courtesy but no special deference. "What details are you focusing on today?" he asked, genuinely curious. "Neural pathways related to memory formation," Maya said, carefully exposing tissue with her scalpel. "I'm particularly interested in the hippocampus deterioration patterns we're seeing here." "Ah," Graham nodded, impressed, despite himself. "Related to your interest in cognitive disorders?" "Yes." This time Maya looked up fully, studying him with those penetrating dark eyes. "You've done your homework, Dr. Smith." The comment hung in the air like a challenge. Graham felt heat rise in his cheeks. She'd essentially called out his obvious investigation into her background. Around them, other students pretended to work, while straining to overhear every word. "I make it my business to know promising students," he said carefully. "Promising," Maya repeated, a slight smile playing at her lips. "Is that what you call students who work night shifts to afford your tuition?" Graham felt his equilibrium shift. In boardrooms, he commanded respect through calculated intimidation. Here, facing this young woman's direct honesty, his usual tactics felt suddenly inadequate. "I call that dedication," he said, surprising himself with his sincerity. Maya studied him for a long moment, as if seeing past his expensive suit and institutional authority to something more human underneath. "Well then," she said finally, "I hope I can live up to your expectations." Before Graham could respond, she'd returned to her work, effectively dismissing him. He watched her for another moment, then continued his circuit of the laboratory, his mind racing. No one had ever dismissed him so elegantly, so completely without malice. Maya Saylor wasn't trying to impress or intimidate him. She was simply being herself, and somehow that was the most captivating thing he'd encountered in years. As he left the laboratory, Graham realized his careful plan of strategic observation had backfired completely. Instead of satisfying his curiosity about Maya, he'd only deepened his fascination with her. The crossing of lines over the following weeks, Graham found excuses to cross paths with Maya. A surprise lecture on medical ethics, where she challenged his perspectives on healthcare accessibility. A chance encounter in the library where he discovered her studying at 2 a.m. after her hospital shift, surrounded by towers of neurology texts. Each interaction only intensified his fascination. Maya treated him with the same respectful directness she showed everyone. No special deference. No obvious interest in his wealth or power. She debated medical policies with him as if he were simply another colleague, not the billionaire who owned the institution. "You realize," Maya said one evening after he'd offered to buy her coffee during one of their impromptu discussions, "that people are starting to talk." They sat in the nearly empty campus cafe, steam rising from their cups between them. Graham had abandoned 3 board meetings that week to engineer these conversations. "Let them talk," Graham said, though her words sent an unexpected chill through him. "I enjoy our discussions about neurogenetic research." Maya's laugh was soft but knowing. "Is that what we're calling this?" Graham felt his carefully constructed defenses crumble. "What would you call it?" "I'd call it a powerful man who's used to getting whatever he wants, suddenly fascinated by someone who doesn't want anything from him." Her dark eyes met his steadily. "I'd call it dangerous." "Dangerous for whom?" Graham asked quietly. "For both of us," Maya said. "Because you're not used to being told no. Me, because ... She paused, seeming to weigh her words carefully. "Because despite everything I know about power dynamics and inappropriate relationships, I find myself looking forward to these conversations more than I should." Graham's heart hammered against his ribs. "Maya, Dr. Smith," she interrupted, gently but firmly. "We both know this can't continue. I'm a student. You're not just my professor. You own this entire institution. You could destroy my career with a word." "I would never. You wouldn't mean to," Maya agreed. "But that's how power works, isn't it? It's even good intentions can cause damage when the scales are this unbalanced." Graham stared at her, recognizing the truth in her words but feeling powerless to accept it. "What if I weren't your professor? What if you weren't my student?" "But I am," Maya said softly. "And you are. I've worked too hard to get here to risk it all for... ... She gestured helplessly between them. "For what?" Graham pressed. Maya was quiet for a long moment, her fingers wrapped around her coffee cup. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "For the possibility of something real with someone who sees me as more than just another student. Someone who challenges me intellectually and makes me laugh despite myself." She looked up at him then, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "For someone who makes me forget, just for a moment, how tired I am from working nights and studying days and fighting for every opportunity." Graham reached across the table, covering her hand with his. The contact sent electricity up his arm, but Maya gently pulled away. "I have to go," she said, standing. "I have an early shift tomorrow." "Maya, wait," but she was already gathering her books, moving toward the door with that same graceful determination he'd first noticed in the auditorium. Graham sat alone in the empty cafe, staring at the space where her hand had been, finally, understanding that wanting something desperately didn't guarantee the right to have it. Asterisk. The choice that changed everything. Graham spent 3 sleepless nights wrestling with Maya's words. She was right, of course. The power dynamic made any relationship between them impossible while she remained his student. But for the first time in his adult life, he'd encountered something he wanted more than professional success or institutional growth. On Thursday morning, he made a decision that would have seemed impossible a month earlier. He called an emergency board meeting. "Gentlemen," Graham began, facing the shocked expressions around the mahogany table, "I'm stepping down as chairman and transferring my ownership stake to the university's board of trustees." The room erupted in confused protests. Harrison, the lead board member, spoke first. "Graham, this is madness. You've built this institution from nothing. What could possibly... I've built something remarkable here," Graham interrupted. I've also realized that I've been so focused on the institution that I've forgotten why medicine matters in the first place. I need to remember what it means to be a doctor, not just a businessman. The legal paperwork took 2 weeks to finalize. Graham donated his penthouse, liquidated his investment portfolio, and established a foundation for neurogenetic research. Focused on underserved communities, he kept enough to live modestly and enrolled in a refresher program to return to clinical practice. He didn't tell Maya about any of it. The first she learned was when Dr. Harrison announced the medical school. Graham watched from the back of the auditorium as shock rippled through the crowd of students and faculty. Maya's eyes found his across the room, wide with disbelief. After the announcement, Graham waited in the courtyard where they'd had their last conversation. Maya appeared within minutes, her expression unreadable. "You gave it all up," she said quietly. "I gave up a business empire," Graham corrected. "I kept what mattered, just the chance to be the man I used to be before I forgot that healing people was more important than building institutions." He paused, studying her face, the possibility of getting to know someone extraordinary without the shadow of inappropriate power dynamics. Maya was quiet for a long moment, processing everything. "You do realize I'm still a student for 3 more years?" "I'm aware," Graham smiled. "I'll be working at the free clinic downtown, rebuilding my surgical skills and learning what I should have never forgotten. If after you graduate, you're interested in getting coffee with a middle-aged doctor who's trying to figure out how to be human again, ... He shrugged. "Well, I'll be around." "You're insane," Maya whispered, but her eyes were bright with something that looked remarkably like hope.
"I'll bleed, Graham."
Agreed. But for the first time in 20 years, I'm not calculating the strategic value of my choices. I'm just following my heart. 3 years later, Dr. Maya Saylor graduated summa cum laude and immediately joined the Neurogenetic Research Foundation that had mysteriously received a massive endowment from an anonymous donor. Her first day of work, she found a single red rose on her desk with a note, "Coffee?" Graham, she found him in the foundation's small break room, looking remarkably different in scrubs and a white coat instead of Fathausen dollar suit. His hair was more silver now, and there were laugh lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. "Dr. Saylor," he said formally, then broke into the genuine smile she'd grown to love during their carefully professional conversations over the past 3 years. "Dr. Smith," she replied, matching his formal tone before stepping closer. "I believe you owe me coffee and an explanation of how exactly my research got such generous funding." "I might know something about that," Graham said, his eyes twinkling. "With mischief? Are you free Saturday evening?" "I think I can make time," Maya said, finally allowing herself to smile fully. As they sat in the same cafe where they'd had their painful goodbye 3 years earlier, Graham reached across the table. This time, when his fingers touched hers, Maya didn't pull away. "Was it worth it?" she asked quietly, "giving up everything you'd built?" Graham looked at their joined hands, then up at her radiant face. "I didn't give up everything," he said. "I gave up the illusion of what I thought mattered to find what actually does. And what's that? The chance to build something real with someone who challenges me to be better than I ever thought possible." Maya squeezed his hand gently. "Well then, Dr. Smith, I think we have some building to do." 5 years later, Dr. Maya Smith and Dr. Graham Smith opened the first comprehensive neurogenetic treatment center designed specifically for underserved communities. The center bore both their names and was funded by the foundation Graham had established with his former fortune. Their wedding day, Maya told reporters that sometimes the most unexpected encounters lead to the most extraordinary changes. Graham simply said that the best decision he'd ever made was choosing love over power, connection over control. Their story became legendary at Westfield Medical University, not as a cautionary tale about inappropriate relationships, but as proof that sometimes, when 2 people are brave enough to challenge everything they thought they knew about themselves, they can create something beautiful together. In the end, Graham's moment of obsession hadn't destroyed Maya's life. It had transformed both of theirs into something neither could have imagined alone. The end.